The Looe Valley Line is one of a few surviving branch lines in Cornwall, a county in the far southwest of England. It's notable for a big horseshoe curve, serving one of the UK's least used stations, and the picturesque scenery as it follows the East Looe River. The railway opened in 1860, initially as an isolated line running from Looe to Mawswater, but it wasn't until 1901 when it was connected to the main line at Liskeard. These days, the line is served by Great Western Railway and their Class 150 Sprinter trains. The 150s were built between 1984 and 1987, and are still a common sight on regional or branch line services throughout the UK. Liskeard Station has an unusual layout, with the branch line platforms separated from, and set at right angles to, the two mainline platforms. Speaking of which, I'll include footage of a Class 802 stopping here at the end of the video, but for now, here's 150-233 pulling into Platform 3 with the 1106 ex-Looe service. Services on the Looe Valley Line run roughly on an hourly basis, which means that our train had a very short turnaround at Liskeard before heading out again. The branch line is single track throughout, so it can only take one train at a time. The railway initially runs in a northeasterly direction upon departure from Liskeard, but soon goes through a horseshoe curve and descends a steep incline to the valley floor at Coombe Junction. Upon arrival at Coombe Junction, the train has to stop and change direction, with the guard having to disembark and throw the points at a nearby ground frame. The train then proceeds a short distance and stops to pick up the guard before continuing down the line. There was a freight service that used to run through Coombe Junction and onto Mawswater, but it hasn't run since 2021. South of Coombe Junction, the railway runs alongside the old Liskeard and Looe Union Canal. It also passes three more intermediate stations by the names of St Keen Wishingwell Halt, Cawsland and Sandplace. From memory, the train only calls at those other three stations on request, and not counting the reversal at Coombe Junction, she normally runs non-stop between Liskeard and Looe. Personally, my favourite part of the line is the section from Sandplace to Looe, where the track runs parallel to the East Looe River, which becomes an estuary as it gets closer to the sea. We also go through the unusual terrace crossing, where the road is prone to flooding at high tide. After the better part of half an hour on the Class 150, we made it to Looe, having covered 8 3/4 miles of track. Once again, the train had a fairly short layover before heading back up the line. Looe Railway Station originally opened in 1879, when passenger trains were introduced on the Looe Valley Line. Originally, the track continued past the station to a small yard, with an engine shed and sidings for freight trains. The branch was proposed for closure under the infamous Beeching Acts, and the sidings were taken out of use in 1963, but the branch as a whole was spared in 1966. 2 years later, the line was cut back by 100 metres, and the police station now stands on the site of the original station building. What's left of the platform is barely long enough to accommodate a 2-car train. While we waited for the next departure back to Liskeard, we had a wander round some of the shops in Looe. I also took the opportunity to try a Cornish pasty for the first time, and couldn't have done so in a more appropriate part of the world. As an aside, one thing that always caught me by surprise in these small English towns was the streets, which are often considerably narrower than those in New Zealand. We got back to the station in time to catch the 13:06 or 1:06 PM service back to Liskeard. One thing you'll notice as you go along this line is the constant clickety-clack noise. Such is the nature of jointed track, which I prefer over continuously welded. And now we're back at Coombe Junction. The procedure on the return trip is much the same as it is on the run to Looe, but it's worth mentioning that most services don't continue the short distance to Coombe Junction Halt, and just reverse at the points instead. Coombe Junction Halt is one of the UK's least used railway stations, only getting 140 passenger entries and exits in the 2023 to 24 period, and it's only served twice a day in each direction. That's 2 services each to Liskeard and Looe. This concludes my coverage of the Looe Valley Line. I thought this was a pleasant little line, especially with the weather we had, and it was nice to ride aboard the very same Class 150 aboard which I had previously ridden between Torquay and Dawlish. As promised, I'll leave you with the footage of a Class 802 calling at Liskeard with 1 Alpha 88, the 12:15 Penzance to London Paddington service.